Welcome to Trends in Training at the University of Texas at Tyler. I'm your host, Ted Houck.
And I am Betty George. We want to thank Dr. Sharon Cathcart for allowing us to present this program to you today. To begin, let's start with a brief history of training.
Thank you, Betty. In the early years, the employees could not read or write, so on-the-job training was essential. During the Middle Ages, the complexity of the knowledge and the specialized skill that were necessary to be taught created the practice of widespread apprenticeships. This was done to develop the next generations of experts in their occupational fields.
During and after the Industrial Revolution, classroom training evolved to allow a single trainer to educate many workers at once. In the early 1900s, the industrialization of the United States fueled the growth of learning and development of formal classroom training. Now, with the technology of the personal computer and the internet, the traditional face-to-face learning is being supplemented by online or computer-based learning. The current trend is called blended learning, that prepares the student for more in-depth and interactive, instructor-led training, usually including both classroom and on-the-job training.
According to BBAP, the future is blended learning. But what are the advantages? One advantage is that a company can use its existing resources and the easy access to technology to develop e-learning components. One example of such technology is the program that was used to develop this module for the Trends in Training class at the University of Texas at Tyler. These resources allowed for rapid, low-cost deployment of training materials. Another advantage is that blended learning allows for the production of good, controlled training that should lead to an increase in productivity.
So how do we design the E component of blended learning? What principles should be considered when designing an effective multiple media module? The first consideration is to engage the learner. You must make the program look good and sound great.
It must be flexible and modular. People have varying learning styles and learning needs. A program that is easily modified will aid you in the continuous improvement of your training materials.
You must signal key learning points. You must have clearly defined learning objectives and emphasize the material that you want to be retained. You should encourage your students to practice their newly learned methods, practices, and values.
Finally, summarize the key learning points and then check for the learner's understanding.
Let's look a little bit closer at engaging the learner. In the article, Using Online Interaction to Break Your Addiction to Classroom Training, by Michael Burke, interaction is key to a successful online program. In modern courseware, the most common way of engaging the learner is to use a game show scenario, such as Jeopardy or Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
From simple to elaborate, there are many interactive exercises that you can include in a software simulation. A simple true or false question is more engaging when presented on a computer format than simply with pen and paper. One might present a scenario where the learner is presented with a certain statement or situation, and then either choose whether they agree or disagree with the scenario.
Matching games, fill in the blank, and crossword puzzles can be made relatively easily and incorporated into a training module. Multiple choice, sequencing exercises, and in-depth process simulations can also be incorporated. With this approach, engaging the learner can create an atmosphere that may be more enjoyable than reading a training manual, and the ability to give immediate feedback helps to reinforce the learning.
As we all know, the environment is a concern that is constantly debated in the news. So, could e-learning save the environment? The most obvious benefit e-learning has to the environment is distance learning. Many large companies use training seminars that involve the convergence of large numbers of people meeting in convention centers.
Consider the energy consumed during these conventions, the fuel used to travel to and from the host city, the energy used to heat and cool the hotel rooms, to launder the sheets and towels, and to cook the restaurant meals. With high energy costs and the concern of carbon emissions into the environment, distance learning not only gives a business the image of corporate responsibility, but it also contributes to a more desirable income statement.
In an e-learning course, it is possible to present all materials and keep all records in an electronic form. This reduces the amount of paper a company uses, allowing for the conservation of our trees and forests.
This concludes our introduction to face-to-face versus online training. I hope that you have a greater understanding of the technology available and its application to new learning methods, such as blended learning. Thank you.